Caribbean Sea, 6:12 a.m., 110 nautical miles north of La Guaira. Sunlight was beginning to peek through the drifting clouds. 3 Venezuelan fighter jets suddenly dropped below 2,000 feet and accelerated toward a U.S. aircraft carrier, cutting a steady wake at 30 knots. The imbalance was obvious. 3 aging jets rushing toward a floating city of radar, steel, and nuclear power. Inside the cockpits, the Venezuelan pilots believed that proximity would give them an advantage. On the carrier's deck, operations became suddenly more active than usual. What the attackers could not see were the layered sensors, the silent escort ships, and a decision cycle measured in seconds. The difference was not in the attack. It was in how calmly the response unfolded, almost surprisingly so. USS Gerald R is a ship weighing over 100,000 tons, sustained by 2 A-1B nuclear reactors, and operated by nearly 5,000 people breathing in a single rhythm. The opponent approaches with a mindset of strike fast, close in, launch missiles, as if charging toward a static target. But Ford does not stand still. It observes, calculates, and waits, less like prey and more like a patient hunter. Above, American technology behaves like living entities. The E-2D Hawkeye hangs high in the sky, sleepless and unblinking, a gatekeeper that sees beyond the curvature of the Earth. The F-35C moves through electronic silence like a ghost, seeing everything while remaining unseen. The EA-18G Growler is different. It does not look, it suffocates, twisting the electromagnetic space until enemy radar can no longer tell what is real from what is false. Meanwhile, the adversary's strategy still revolves around speed and courage. Admirable qualities, but meaningless when placed inside a battle space where information is completely controlled by the United States. Around the carrier, Aegis-equipped escorts form a thinking wall. The AN-SPY-6 radar scans the battle space with cold, mechanical patience, tracking hundreds of targets at once without emotional prioritization. If anything crosses the boundary, SM-6 missiles launch like a neural reflex. ESSM handles what remains, and Phalanx Sea-Whiz becomes the final blink, brief, automatic, and ruthless. Beneath the surface, Virginia-class submarines listen quietly, like an invisible hand already resting on the opponent's throat. In this geometry of force, the enemy's plan for a sudden, overwhelming strike looks not daring, but naive. Inside the Combat Information Center, there is no thrill of victory, only the calm of those who know they are in control. The screens do not show chaos, but perfect order. Distances, speeds, probabilities, options. The greatest humiliation for the opponent is not being shot down, but being neutralized without ever being treated as a real threat. In this space, the United States does not need to prove power with fire. It only needs
to let the system function as designed, and every simplified strategy brought against it collapses, silently, coldly, and irreversibly. 6:18 a.m. 3 Venezuelan Su-30MK2 fighters run low over the Caribbean, holding under 2,000 feet to stay beneath the cleanest lines of radar detection. Their plan is simple: appear fast, appear close, and force the U.S. carrier to react on camera. Each jet carries a mixed loadout that can look routine until it isn't. Short-range and beyond visual range air-to-air missiles are standard for the platform, and Venezuela has also publicly shown Su-30MK2s carrying KH-31 anti-ship missiles in recent footage. On the U.S. side, the Carrier Strike Group is already working the problem as a geometry exercise. The escorts, Aegis-equipped cruisers and destroyers, are not waiting to see anything with human eyes. Their job is to maintain a continuous, shared track picture, with radar coverage designed to sweep wide sectors at long range and to track hundreds of contacts simultaneously. Public descriptions of Aegis Spy-1 capabilities commonly cite tracking capacity in the hundreds and air search ranges on the order of 175 nautical miles for Spy-1, with the broader Aegis system often described as managing roughly 700 tracks in legacy public materials. Inside the carrier's command spaces, no one announces panic. The tone is procedural: classify, correlate, predict. The carrier turns only a few degrees, small enough to look like routine navigation, meaningful enough to improve wind over deck and keep aircraft options open. 6:23 a.m. The range closes through 90 kilometers. The air picture tightens. The Venezuelan formation splits into a shallow bracket. One pair stays low and fast, while a single jet climbs to roughly 12,000 to 15,000 feet to widen its radar look and act as a communications relay. It is a classic attempt to create multiple problems at once: low-altitude ambiguity
plus a higher altitude director. The US response is layered but deliberately quiet. An E-2D Advanced Hawkeye maintains a stable orbit well behind the forward edge, acting as airborne battle manager. Official Navy descriptions emphasize its modern radar and battle management role. Its value is not a single range number, but its ability to knit sensors and fighters into one networked decision loop. 2 US fighters already on combat air patrol shift to a higher altitude band, around 25,000 to 30,000 feet, because altitude converts to options: radar horizon, fuel efficiency, and time to intercept. They do not race in, they slide into position. Below them, an Aegis destroyer subtly adjusts course and speed to keep the threat axis inside the strongest radar coverage and missile engagement geometry. Again, no drama, just math. On the Venezuelan side, cockpit cues begin to change. Passive warning receivers register emissions that don't match civilian air routes. The pilots cannot see the interceptors yet, but they can feel that they are being managed. To maintain the narrative of "we force them to react," the lead Su-30 pushes the low pair even lower, down toward 800 to 1,000 feet, trading safety margin for theater. 6:28 a.m. This is the moment where a single mistake could turn a demonstration into a crisis. The Venezuelan lead aircraft rises slightly, just enough to improve radar line of sight, and briefly paints the forward airspace. On a carrier strike group, that is not treated as an attack, but it is treated as a data event. Electronic support measures record waveform characteristics and timing. The US side now knows more about the jets than the jets know about the strike group. The interceptors finally reveal themselves visually, 2 small silhouettes above and ahead, positioned to block the direct path to the carrier. Their posture is firm but restrained. No aggressive dives, no reckless closure. The US fighters hold a safe offset, forcing the Venezuelans to acknowledge the reality. They are not approaching a ship. They are entering a defended airspace system. Below, the escorts remain in a posture that signals capability without escalation. The strike group's outer layers, fighters and Aegis, exist to prevent the inner layers from ever being needed. In public descriptions, the standard missile family and Aegis are designed for fleet air defense, and SM-6 is widely described as having an anti-surface capability at roughly 200 miles in some public summaries, while US Navy reporting has discussed over-the-horizon engagements well beyond visual range in demonstrations. None of that has to be used here for it to matter. The Venezuelan pilots now face a choice: continue forward and risk crossing a line they cannot control, or pivot and preserve the political messaging of "we challenge them." Their fuel burn at low altitude is punishing. Their margin for error is shrinking by the minute. 6:33 a.m. The Venezuelan formation breaks first, not in panic but in calculation. One jet turns away, then the others follow. The US interceptors do not pursue into Venezuelan coastal airspace. They simply maintain separation, ensure the inbound vector is terminated, and hold position until the tracks are clearly opening. This is the quiet power of a disciplined response. The US goal is not humiliation in the sky, it is control of escalation. On the ships, the Aegis picture shifted from high interest to monitored. The carrier continued flight operations with minimal disruption, reinforcing the intended message. A carrier strike group is built to operate effectively under pressure. The 21-minute encounter unfolded without a single weapon being employed, with no cinematic explosions. Yet one side drew a clear lesson. A few fighters can make headlines, but they cannot dictate the tempo of a networked fleet that detects early, positions calmly, and provides off-ramps before anyone is forced to reach a point of no return. The most striking feature after the encounter is uncertainty. No official explanation is given for why the Venezuelan fighter jets disengaged. There is no admission of error, no declaration of success. The withdrawal occurs quietly, leaving analysts to infer motives from behavior rather than statements. In military signaling, this silence is itself revealing. Unexplained withdrawals often indicate that the cost of risk has exceeded a threshold, or that the opposing force is not prepared to withstand additional pressure. From the US perspective, the response appears almost indifferent. The carrier strike group does not change course, halt flight operations, or elevate public alert levels, while an average carrier deploys approximately 60 to 70 aircraft on a continuous day-long patrol, with squadrons cycling in 15 to 20-minute intervals for takeoffs and landings. This calm is not accidental. It reflects confidence in overwhelming layered superiority. the ability to absorb pressure without showing strain. Power is demonstrated not through escalation, but through the absence of urgency. Behind the scenes, the encounter produces tangible gains. Radar emissions, flight profiles, communications behavior, and reaction timing are all recorded. Even in a single 10 to 15-minute approach, electronic sensors can capture hundreds of data points on radar frequency, heading, speed, and response times of the opposing squadron. For a modern navy, this intelligence is often more valuable than the confrontation itself. It refines threat libraries, improves simulations, and enhances future decision-making, all with minimal added risk. For the opposing side, the cost-benefit balance is unfavorable. Each combat sortie burns through roughly 265 to 400 gallons of fuel in a single mission. That's the equivalent of what several family cars would consume over an entire year, gone in just a few hours in the air, plus engine wear and pilot hours, without achieving proximity advantage, coercive leverage, or strategic change. No access is denied. No operations are disrupted. The demonstration attracts attention, but produces no influence. In practical terms, no strategy is advanced. The situation then resets. Aircraft return to base. The carrier strike group resumes routine patrols, with squadrons maintaining approximately 150 to 200 takeoffs and landings per day. No territory changes hands. No new rules are established. This return to normalcy is the final message. In modern deterrence, the most decisive outcome is often one that leaves nothing visibly altered, except for the mutual understanding of who controls escalation and who does not. In the following 36 hours, public narratives begin to diverge. Regional media portray the encounter as a bold challenge, emphasizing fighter jets approaching a powerful adversary. In contrast, official U.S. statements are brief and technical, describing routine operations conducted safely in international airspace. This contrast is deliberate. One side seeks spectacle, while the other relies on normalcy as evidence of control. This is the essence of modern maritime deterrence. Power is not demonstrated through constant use of force, but through the ability to decide when force is unnecessary. A carrier strike group is not merely a collection of ships and aircraft. It is a system designed to compress decision-making time for the opponent while expanding it for its own commanders. By observing first and responding calmly, the system imposes its logic without firing a shot. In contemporary military competition, the most effective responses are often invisible to the public. Intelligence is gathered, capabilities are validated, and escalation is avoided. The sea returns to routine patrols, aircraft resume scheduled sorties. Yet beneath that calm surface, one fact remains undeniable. Deterrence worked. Control was maintained, and the balance of power was reinforced, not through destruction, but through restraint backed by undeniable capability.